one of the biggest brand characters in Marvel history in its title role. Huge stars in Jake Gyllenhaal and Tom Holland in key positions and the MCU label above the door. But its proximity to Avengers Endgame presented Sony and Marvel with a difficult prospect. No matter how excited anyone was for the Homecoming sequel, it was set for release into the shadow of Endgame, so there was less space for organic hype. Luckily though, that doesn't mean that the film is disappointing in any substantial sort of way. It's mostly very good, in actual fact, with flirtations, with greatness, and an absolutely phenomenal ending, and it's a very much a strong finish to Phase 3. It's not a perfect film, of course, and it's not quite up to Homecoming's level, but there's a lot to admire here. So first, let's look at the positives. Number 9. Jake Gyllenhaal. Just as Michael Keaton was wonderfully well cast in Homecoming as Vulture, and his performance proved the value of going for someone of his standing, Jake Gyllenhaal's performance as Quentin Beck is a huge plus for Far From Home. He blends an easy big brother sort of charm with genuine superstar presence, and there's lots of complexity in there, just as there was in Keaton's multi-faceted performance. Even when the writing behind him isn't entirely brilliant, Gyllenhaal is completely captivating and he manages to make what could be a very goofy character really work. Number 8. The details, secrets, and nods. As you'll probably expect from an MCU movie, Far From Home is jam-packed with Easter eggs, little details, and reference points that will not only have fans popping with delights in their seats, but will also encourage at least a couple of rewatches. There are great nods to Tony Stark throughout, as you might expect, as well as lots of Spider-Man history reference points, and some of the most successful fan-pleasing moments too. The best of the reference stands out an absolute mile, without revealing the specifics. There's a nod to Marvel Zombies in there that's absolutely horrifying and brilliant, and will make fans wish there was a possibility of a full zombies movie. And again, it's all very much set up to encourage you to go back and watch again to spot more of the smaller touches. Number 7. The effects are incredibly well done. When Doctor Strange came along, Scott Derrickson's stunning, mind-bending effects were a high point for the MCU. And they opened doors that weren't limited to multiverse portals. If you thought those sequences that drew from Inception and the deepest, darkest regions of Derrickson's mind were good, you ain't seen nothing yet. Not only are some of the scenes involving Mysterio incredibly well conceived, but they also back up by glossy, near faultless effects, considering how much heavy lifting is being done by the effect team here. That consistency is unreal. Admittedly, there are a couple of slumps right at the start when the Iron Spider suit is around, but across the whole movie, there are some of the most impressive, dazzling effect sequences under Marvel's banner. Number 6. How it deals with the endgame fallout, with Far From Home actually forming the final chapter in the third phase of the MCU, and the marketing revealing how much the spectre of Tony Stark's death will hang over Peter Parker. Far From Home was always going to be closely tied to Endgame. In the end, this is not just an Endgame addendum, but the way the script deals with hangovers from that movie is occasionally very inspired. Obviously, Tony Stark's presence is felt, and we get a very clear insight into legacy superheroism. But it's even more than that. At times, it almost feels like the scriptwriters have gone through all of the plot holes and issues that fans of Endgame brought up, like the question of Peter's aging classmate or people returning from the bleed to find their homes have been taken over by their new families, to offer incidental, sometimes tough in-cheek answers. It's a very clever way to explore the complex lore of Endgame. Number 5. MJ and Peter Parker. While MJ didn't have a whole lot to do in Homecoming, she's elevated in Far From Home to a more key role, and that means we get to see more of Zendaya's brilliant performance. She's dark, awkward, and has a vulnerability behind her cool exterior that balances Peter's and Ned's more brazen dorkiness perfectly. What Zendaya does with this performance may well be overlooked a lot because of the showier elements of the story, but that doesn't mean her any less worthy of note. She has layers that peel themselves always satisfyingly, and it's almost like the writers and actors have studied the anatomy of a crush to build her up. And even though it's often deemed unnecessary for strong female characters to have a romantic subplot, MJ and Peter's dynamic is a wholesome and rewarding as it is goofy and awkward, and that makes it feel far more cynically plotted. They are the heart of the narrative as much as Peter's goals from Endgames are. Number 4. The humor mostly works. Spider-Man Homecoming showed the real value of bringing Spider-Man home to the MCU as it pushed him as the quick, slinging comedic presence he'd been briefly in Civil War. And that has always been known as in the comics. Peter Parker is an irresistible, cocky charm that only a school kid thrust into heroism could have, and the tone of this movie almost feel like extrapolation of his young mind. So even when we're watching tense moments unfold, Peter always has something to say to add levity, and there are numerous times when the film crashes its own point for the sake of a laugh. Sure, there are times when it wears thin, but when the humor works, it's very infectious. Peter's relationship with Ned is obviously very rewarding on the front, and there's a nice odd couple vibe to his interaction with Nick Fury, as you might expect. There aren't many truly side-splitting moments, but the writing raises about as many smiles as Ant-Man, which is high praise on that front. Number 3. The action. There could have been major scope here to make a John Hughes-infused teen movie looking at a young man struggling to balance the pressure of expectation with his own romantic impulses and a journey to find himself. That could have filled up an entire plot even without any action bundled in as well. So it's great to see how impressive the action sequences are. Thanks to the stunning effects and the possibilities afforded by Mysterio's powers, one sequence is in particular that fully explores what he is capable of is just breathtaking. It's innovative, imaginative, and hugely impactful. And there's very little in the MCU like it. Even the battle sequences are great too, with the stunts and effects team coming up with yet more impressive ways to use Spider-Man's swing mechanics, and also the new possibility of Mysterio's flight. And none of that is compromised, particularly by ropey ragdoll effects either, mercifully. As the film progresses, and particularly in the explosive finale, you get a real sense of Spider-Man truly blossoming into a superhuman. Not just a character with Tony Stark's vast technological armory behind him, because of the exploration of one particular element of his power. He feels more central to the story and not just a hero placed by convenience, which is the entire point of the story. Number 2. The art of the twist. Looking at the marketing for Far From Home, lots and lots of people have opinions about a so-called obvious twist, partly because of assumed knowledge based on the comics. What we all failed to know at the time was that the MCU never follows the comics to a letter and we're always guaranteed to get surprises. Far From Home really needs to be commended for a couple of huge surprises, but there's a lot to be said too for how the big twist is dealt with. Even if you're expecting certain things to go the way they eventually do, the payoffs are done so cleverly that going in with some knowledge isn't a bad thing. Because there's no way you will have guessed the precise details and the marketing ploy of seemingly spoiling some things by making them painfully obvious actually works a little like a complex bait and switch. In short, the story is very good, even when the writing falls out in brief, individual moments. Quentin Beck is a strong focal point, it's all very satisfying. Number 1. The post-credits and the setup. It's easy to throw around hyperbole, but honestly, the first credit scene attached to Far From Home is the best post-credit scene Marvel Studios have ever released. The plot details in there are incredible, and how it set up Spider-Man 3 is nothing short of amazing. Not only is there a major fan-pleasing moment in there, but the ramifications of what happened in that short sequence are real game changers. Already, the shape of the story for the planned sequel looks even better than both Homecoming and Far From Home. And then, just as you're catching your breath, there's a second stinger that's right up there with the best post-credit scene in itself. It's more humorous, but again, there's a big story reveal in there that could offer a major hint of what's to come. And now, on to the negatives. Number 4. One of the reviews is a little, now it's difficult to go into this one in too much detail without straying into spoilerific territory, but let's just say that, as predicted, the events of the plot do not exactly go as they appear to be set up by the marketing. There's something major going on that's not reflected in that, which ties everything back to a whole series of events in earlier MCU movies. The approach to knitting that all together is very admirable, but it feels like another of those genius Marvel Studio moments where we had evidence all along of something without ever realizing that there was even going to be a payoff. But it's just something rather uninspiring in the way the script offers justification for wholesale motivations. It's rather like the scriptwriters thought that the way the twist was unpicked was so genius that the actual substance of what was being untwisted didn't matter as much, and that's not really true, sadly. Number 3, the superfluous characters. Far From Home has a fairly big cast, and for the most part, the key players are balanced very well. Unfortunately, that doesn't transfer across the entire cast though, and there are some characters who simply do not need to be involved. Even with very little screen time, Marisa Tomei's Aunt May could easily have set out. Happy Hogan doesn't really add anything other than a tangible tie to Tony Stark that could have been another way. JB Smoove's Mr. Bell is a walking one-dimensional gag. Remy Hill's Brad drifts out of relevance halfway through the film, and Newman's Oscar Dimitri should have been dropped entirely. The entire Brad subplot seems to be designed to add more tension to MJ and Peter's dynamic, but when the script cannot commit to paying its own subplots off, something is wrong. Why it wasn't just dropped entirely remains unclear. Number 2. Lots of the characters are idiots. The easiest way to raise dramatic tension in the plot is to drop IQ level to the point that characters don't question things that would otherwise wrap the plot up very quickly. The key to pulling that off is balance. You give some characters necessary blind spots to help advance the plot, and everyone accepts it quietly. Unfortunately, Far From Home pushes the envelope way too much. There's a very clever reason why one character acts more stupidly than you generally expect. But once you start keeping a tally of idiotic decisions made by major characters, it becomes pretty clear that almost every single one of them commits something unforgivable and sometimes massively out of character. And while it's funny that Martin Starr's Mr. Harrington is a walking disaster, he goes so far beyond acceptable levels of stupidity that you wonder how he's even capable of dressing himself. Number 1, there's just too much slapstick. Somebody involved in Far From Home's conception is a big fan of Mr. Bean. By the look of it, that can be the only reason why there's so much slapstick. Now, nobody is saying that there isn't a place for slapstick, but again, it always works better when it's sparingly used and it's a little too liberal splash around here. One fight scene in particular includes not one, but two prep falls by Spider-Man, and at times it definitely feels like the filmmakers have a bigger appetite for physical comedy than audience probably will. There's a lot of shtick in the film as well as get close to wearing thin on a fair few occasions, eliciting something closer to an eye roll than a laugh. It's not entirely fatal to be fair, but the balance of humor is a lot less artfully crafted than Homecoming.